No deal today from Phillip Garrido, and now it looks like we're headed for a trial. And we certainly didn't expect what happened today in a courtroom in Placerville.
That's because earlier this week, Nancy Garrido's attorney said a plea deal was imminent. So what does this mean for the case against Phillip and Nancy Garrido? News 10 legal analyst Bill Portanova is here to explain what happens next. But first, we go to George Warren, who was in the courtroom when the legal twist took place. George.
Well, to call this a surprise would be an understatement. The courtroom was packed with local, regional, and national media waiting for the announcement of a plea bargain. But when Phillip Garrido was asked how he pleads to an amended indictment, his words were, "not guilty."
The largest crowd of cameras yet gathered in Placerville because of one man. This time it wasn't Phillip Garrido, but the attorney representing his wife. Stephen Tapson had promised the world that Phillip Garrido would plead guilty today.
Tapson, you promised us he's going to plead guilty. Well, I said unless there was a hitch, so now there's a hitch.
The hitch is twofold: a legal technicality involving the indictment and questions from the defense about how the grand jury was selected. But Phillip Garrido's attorney later scolded her colleague for promising something that she wasn't even close to delivering.
You know, who says those kinds of things? Mr. Tapson should never have done that. That was the wrong thing for him to do. And it was inaccurate. I would say that he should speak for his client.
There was never a guilty plea in the works?
You know, there's always negotiations in the works, but I told you guys last time that there was no offer on the table, okay?
District Attorney Vern Pearson once again indicated he would prefer to avoid a trial, but not at the expense of going soft on the Garridos.
The best thing is the two of them take responsibility for their actions and move on, and that would be the best thing. But that's not the responsibility. The responsibility we have is to see that they're held accountable, and how we get there is how we get there.
Now, the two items that attorney Stephen Tapson says constitute a hitch, according to the district attorney, will not be any problem at all. Vern Pearson says that he is in fact ready to go to trial. Today, the judge set August 1st as the official trial date. Live in Placerville, George Warren, News 10.
All right, thank you, George.
Well, defense attorney and former federal prosecutor Bill Portanova joins us now in studio with more on this twist in the Garrido case.
Dan, what's your take on it?
Well, it's not really that surprising that this particular character has maybe played a game with the media to promise a plea and not plead. You're dealing with somebody who tried to really take over somebody else's life. He directed that person's life and her children's lives for years, and he may in fact be trying to direct an additional world that he's creating right now through the media.
Phillip Garrido's attorney is saying that there was never any deal, any plea on the table, but negotiations were going on. Do you think they'll continue to go on, or are we more likely now to really see a trial in August?
Negotiations always go on. No matter what the attorneys are saying, everybody is always looking for a way to settle the case in a way that makes the most sense. When somebody's looking at 440 years in prison, you could make a deal for half that amount of time, save the county a trial, and guarantee that somebody's going to go to prison for the rest of their life. Obviously, the prosecutor is going to keep that in mind.
What is the likelihood now that we will see J.C. Dugard in court, or do you believe that perhaps her grand jury testimony will serve as her courtroom testimony in this trial?
My sense is that everybody would like to see this case go into a plea bargain situation to put it to bed, but sometimes a defendant gets to just do exactly what he wants to do, which is to drag it through the entire spectacle. And as you were pointing out earlier, in an earlier conversation, it could very well be that one of the motivations to actually go to trial would be to bring the family all together, this warped, distorted family all back together in one room. And the only way that's ever going to happen is if there's a trial.
So you think Phillip Garrido might actually have some kind of sick desire like that to once again, for a few weeks, be in a room with JC and maybe even her kids?
It's an extraordinary thing to think about, but you were dealing with such a bizarre, twisted sense of reality that, yes, as you say, anything like that is possible. And even if it's a long, expensive trial, it has to be done.
Well, it's conceivable. Someone who, you know, did all this allegedly could certainly want to control the situation and see her again.
Well, absolutely. And the things that they're accused of doing probably in the first 24 hours were enough to get them life imprisonment, and that went on for 18 years. So the idea that they're even debating guilt or innocence in a number of years, is a little bit preposterous at this point. However, it's a person's constitutional right, and these poor attorneys, they're stuck with these facts, and facts are very stubborn things. Yeah. They're doing the best they can.
Yeah, and if JC doesn't want to go to trial, prosecutors kind of have to take that into consideration on whether they cut a deal or not.
Well, that's a fact, and the prosecution must consult with the victim in these cases, and it will have some weight.
All right.
Thank you very much, Bill Portanova, for your expertise. And for continuing coverage of the Garrido case, you can always go to news10.net, click on the Garrido story, and you will find many of our other previous stories on the case, plus clips from today's news conferences and photos from where JC lived for 18 years. It's all right there on news10.net.